The official hardcore realms have just been announced on the PTR. They will be coming tomorrow. But before that, I want to break down what we should be able to experience and what Blizzard's philosophy was looking like moving forward into the hardcore realms. Luckily, today we'll be joined by two of Blizzard's very own developers, Anna Resendez, the lead software engineer, and Tim Jones, the senior technical designer, both of whom had a massive role in us actually being able to experience hardcore on a Blizzard official capacity. So today they're here to answer as many questions as they can regarding the hardcore realms and what we have to see in the future. We're gonna get into things like dungeon lockouts. Can we bubble Hearth? Can we use Flask of Petrification? And will there be world buffs? Everything you can think of should be answered here today. Thank you guys for being here, and let's get right to it.
I'm Anna Resendez. I am lead software engineer for the World of Warcraft Classic team, and I'm super excited to talk today about Hardcore Classic.
And I'm Tim Jones. I'm the senior technical designer on the World of Warcraft Classic team, and I'm also excited to talk to you guys about hardcore.
I like that we can finally see the official logo for hardcore.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time.
Reveal.
Yeah, that looks awesome. I'm so stoked. Thank you guys for joining me today. My name is Sarthe. As anyone watching this probably knows, I am a enjoyer of WoW Classic. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys. Tim, it's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Talk to you about Ulduar. Yeah. So I'm really excited, and Anna, really nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
Thanks for being here today. Let's get into it. The hardcore community, as you guys know, has been really adamant about the whole solo self-found thing. It's been a community-driven thing, and I know Blizzard isn't usually of the mindset to add restrictions to the way people play the game. Is there anything that you guys are planning to implement for solo self-found? Maybe something like a Soul of Iron, like a buff on a personal character that doesn't end up doing as many like trading. I guess we haven't even asked if there's going to be trading, and you haven't officially said if there's going to be trading or auction house or anything like that.
Yeah, well, the main plan for hardcore is, like very simple. You have one life, but then if you die, however you die, that's done, right? There's not gonna be, we're gonna block the restrictions to resurrect, use Ankh, or any other like kind of like weird items that could get you back to life. All of that is going to be restricted. So that's basically the base. That said, we're not going to be restricting trading or mail or anything of those. We believe that, a big part of why it is very different in the era servers that currently have the version of the add-on is that not everyone there is like actually in the challenge, right? Like there's some people that have had that like started since the beginning of Classic 2019, and they still have their characters there, and they're just like coming back maybe just to raid or to do other activities, but they didn't participate in the hardcore challenge. And there's also the people that came from Season of Mastery that might also be in this server. So it kind of like creates kind of an unfair trading ecosystem with already a established gold and economy and everything. So we understand why a lot of the restrictions are there, right? That said, we're really looking forward to see how that happens in our servers, in the official servers, where everybody that is in those servers are participating in the challenge. So we don't want to go out with like any kind of extra restrictions. That said, if players choose to, go by the rules the specific rules that they want to go into that are added, they're more than welcome to do that, but we're not gonna have any restrictions, and we currently don't have any plans of like what you're saying of like maybe we can have an extra note of like, hey, you did this in the extra mega hard mode, but yeah, we're listening, and we are always welcome for feedback, and like we can like see how the PTR goes and like have like more discussions, right?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if you want to add something, Tim.
Oh, I think you mentioned like, would we be incorporating like maybe a Soul of Iron style mechanic in hardcore? And the plan is to incorporate the Soul of Iron as it was in Season of Mastery into hardcore. It's largely just a cosmetic tracking of whether you have died or not, which everyone will know whether you've died on an official hardcore. So that point is kind of moot, but it does like have a cosmetic tracker of what end of which end raid tier boss that you've killed. And
Okay.
like Anna said, if the add-on already does an incredible job of tracking these accomplishments that people have while leveling, fighting super hard quest content at relevant levels, or completing dungeons at relevant levels, or other types of challenges. If there's a desire from the community for that to be represented in sort of the same way that Soul of Iron does, then we'll listen to that feedback and incorporate that into our designs if there's a desire for it.
Okay, awesome. I think that's really exciting, because hearing that you guys are open to the idea of, if the community has a very strong feedback on something like that, I think is really exciting to see that you're like willing to work on things. On that note, right now, including like restrictions, we talked about not really having too many with things like the trading. There is a current within the add-on and within the community built-in restriction for one dungeon, and only being able to do that dungeon once. It kind of gives the aspect of, if an item dropped on that run on that character, you get really excited. It's the blessed run. Does Blizzard have any plans on implementing any sort of dungeon restrictions or lockout restrictions for the hardcore realms?
Yes, we're gonna have the restriction of, you will only be able to do one dungeon per day. It's a bit different than the add-on restrictions, but it's gonna basically work like a heroic, where you can only do one like dungeon one time a day. And that restriction is gonna be lifted by the time you get to the level 60. So you are able to, go and do all the dungeons and get the gear and all of the things that you want to.
This type of restriction sort of it mostly serves the case of, we really want to emphasize being out in the world and doing questing content and experiencing other players, like running into other players in the outdoor world. And we don't want like dungeon cleave or spell cleave to be the primary way that people feel obligated to level up in. So we really feel like the 24-hour lockout timer on dungeons will help facilitate that. And like we said before, if people want to impose extra restrictions on themselves, we're 100% in support of the modding community for hardcore doing that. But at this time, we don't have a plan of making it so that you can only do one dungeon for the entirety of your level up process.
Yeah, I think that'll work out really well with people that play the game all the time. Are gonna out level the dungeons no matter what, and then people that are gonna playing very casually will be able to go back and run it again, and should be really enjoyable.
Exactly. And yeah, like Anna said, there's no such restriction for level 60 players. Level 60 players won't incur any lockout for dungeons. If you're a druid and you got to farm Nomergon, then go for it, man.
Then you have to do it. Does that mean inherently within the game systems, will there be issues grouping with level 60 players? I know that's currently within the system of hardcore, but would that mean there's any sort of restrictions going on there?
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Players who are not level 60 will not be able to get into the same dungeons as level 60 players. So it'll prevent max level characters from boosting people through dungeons. And there will be the same sort of XP penalty system that existed in Season of Mastery and Wrath Classic, where if there's too big of a differential between the lowest level person and a high level person in a group, sub 60, then XP will be nerfed to encourage players of a similar level band to take on those challenges.
Yeah, I think that was very well received, getting rid of the boosting. So that'll be really nice. Without the restrictions then, and without the boosting, we're going to see everybody mostly level in the open world. There is a hot topic around players right now around using things like world buffs in the open world and getting world buffs. And are there any changes or plans to change world buffs and how they interact with players at all within the hardcore realms?
There's no plans on changing how world buffs behave. In fact, you'll be able to get the Chrono Boon Displacer on hardcore realms. I think we've learned some lessons from Season of Mastery and not having world buffs. And yes, they make your character incredibly powerful, but at the end of the day, they're one of the biggest social. They're an incredibly fun social event to gather up for, especially in hardcore. And you feel that it is exciting to be able to get Rallying Cry of the Dragon Slayer and then be like, I can go do Barons. I can level up really fast now. And it's also going to be interesting on a fresh server where no one's at max level. No one's going to be dropping these buffs at the start, and it will be a special event towards the beginning when these buffs start dropping. So I think we want to maintain sort of how unique the social gathering is for world buffs, even in hardcore.
We are though gonna be removing the debuff limit and the buff limit.
That's huge.
So you're gonna be able to have as many buffs as your heart desires. Yeah.
That's it felt really bad in Classic having classes that just couldn't use your abilities because it didn't do enough for other abilities. It would like take over deep wounds and stuff. So that's amazing. I think all like hunters and druids everywhere are going to be really happy.
Yes.
Warlocks casting dots in a raid?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
You actually get to use your abilities. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be very well, hopefully very, very well received. With the social aspects, like the world buffs, getting the first ones is going to be one of the most exciting things on the realm. But that the social aspect of hardcore also leads itself to griefing. And I know a lot of people are encouraged to play the game their own way, but Blizzard has been cracking down on griefing as much as possible lately. So could you give us a little insight into how you plan to deal with griefing or kind of try to prevent it so that someone that's been leveling for like the last month doesn't just get deleted for something they couldn't avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna talk about like specifically what we're gonna be doing for PvP.
Okay.
Because PvP, you know, other players sometimes are the main culprits that might that are of this kind of behavior, right? So for example, we have been looking at different situations that have arisen, like for example, people right-clicking on a flight master and then like, oh, there was a rogue, they're surprised, now you're flagged. So the main thing is that we want to make that PvP interactions are 100% like something that the player wanted to engage on. So the first thing is like servers are going to be PvE only. And the second part is that really the only way that we want you to get flagged for PvP is by you typing flag to PvP, right? Like we don't want any like right-clicking into stealth characters or any of those behaviors. We're really going around and like looking and trying to fix all of those. So it's like something that the player actually has to go and ask for it. So I would encourage also for anyone that goes into the PTR, if you see some behavior that happened that is like, hey, I got flagged for PvP and I wasn't looking for it, let us know also so we can also go in and, you know, add certain behaviors there. So that's one of the biggest ones that right now we're looking into, kind of like PvP. It's because you want to. But we also want to encourage it for the people that are looking for that. So like, I don't know if you have heard about like the Duel to the Death, that it's coming up. That it's gonna be a very like conscious, a special kind of duel. You still can duel if you want like regular duels, but if you want to do one of these, it's gonna be with a very explicit, I'm here because I want to kill you, you know. And like something really cool is like if you get to kill to defeat an opponent, you're gonna start getting a cosmetic buff. Basically saying like how many people you have killed by like maybe an ear icon, maybe giving a reference to other games, you know. So it's something that is coming up, but we want it to be something that is like very conscious. Same with battlegrounds, you know, queuing for random battlegrounds is not going to be allowed, or it's going to be disabled. But if you still want to play against other players in Warzone and kind of have like a bloodbath in Warzone, go ahead, go do it. But you're going to have to do it via war game, so you're going to have to find the group and duel them basically and get into the map. We have also had other areas where we have like trying to reduce the griefing. Like Tim can talk to you a little bit about, for example, kiting mobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So like we all have seen the video of Teremus being kited from blasted lands to unsuspecting adventurers in Elwyn. And while that might be funny to watch as an observer, it's miserable as the actual person getting killed. So creatures will sort of respect zone boundaries, and we're building a system to prevent creatures from being able to be kited outside of blasted lands if that's the creature's zone of spawning. So that will be something that we're doing. I know Anna briefly touched on we're looking at quests one by one to see like was this a quest that flagged people for PvP unintentionally. We're preventing that from being able to happen. Even quests where like escort quests in particular have been sort of targets for interference.
Yes.
And we're changing the faction templates on those creatures that are the escortee so that they can't be pulled out of combat to screw with that person's experience doing that quest. Might ruin the fun for someone out there, but I think we're preserving the leveling experience. It's better for that person actually trying to do the quest in that circumstance. So
yeah, you mentioned there's some quests. You mentioned quests that have been notorious to get griefed, like in Westfall, the Defias Messengers already been fixed. But there are some quests where there's things that you can't really do, like inside of Blackrock Mountain, the quest for like getting a key, or like potentially the Videre Elixir quest for the link quest, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any plans on adjusting those so they're possible to get done by players doing or playing on this realm, really?
100%. Those quests are already fixed so that they're doable on hardcore without dying. Specifically, the Videre Elixir quest for the Lincoln Ungoro line, instead of killing you when you drink it in the Gadget's End graveyard, it'll take you to like 1% HP and give you a near-death experience, but you won't be dead. And so for the next 5 to 10 minutes, you'll be able to go north into the hills, just probably heal to full before you do that. So you don't get killed by a random scorpion or something. But under that aura, with that aura being active, you'll be able to talk with a quest giver there. And same with the Shadowforge key quest line for Blackrock Depths. You'll be able to gaze into the spectral fire in the corner of that room, and when you get that aura, you'll be able to interact with the quest giver without being dead. So we're definitely looking at all the red flag quests that have been mentioned by the hardcore community and doing our best to address every one of those. So those changes should be live on the PTR.
That was gonna cause so much frustration.
Yes.
There's two things that you mentioned that I don't want to gloss over too much on, but I wanted to. So you mentioned the Mak'gora potential system where you could also have like a cosmetic on your character showcasing your wins. I know the community has expressed like any interest in potentially looting the person you've defeated or anything like that, but seeing any sort of cosmetic I think is amazing. So the Mak'gora is a very standard system where everyone has to opt into it, but you will still be able to normally duel, and you will get this cosmetic for as many wins as you get, right?
Yeah, only on the duel to the deaths. Like if you do a regular duel, we're not gonna be counting those. Those are not real ones. But this one's it's kind of like a hint of like, hey, look, I'm a very, very like really good opponent. So that said, though, there's gonna be certain restrictions of like levels, because of course we believe that like in order for you to get a token, it should be like a fair match, right? And not like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna be dueling people that are level 1, kind of like those kind of restrictions. So we are adding some restrictions level wise, so it's a fair opponent that you're competing against. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm like super excited. Like I'm just excited to like when people get to like do the first tournament with Duel with the Dead, I'm gonna be like watching there with like eating popcorn and see like how it goes. Really, really
That's
excited.
those tournaments. There's a lot of plans in the works for doing tournaments
Nice.
for those. And you mentioned the PTR, and now everyone should know about PTR. Are there gonna be level restrictions on PTR held for tournaments at all, or is everything going to be available? And what are you guys looking out for anyone that's playing the PTR to report to you to help enhance the experience of the live realms?
Overall, like the main things that we are looking forwards for players are going to be, especially on the looks of us, if there's any other new kind of griefing mechanics that you are finding, like we already talked about this quest, but if there's like a quest that we missed, or if there's also a different like way of like you got flagged for PvP, so those kind of behaviors, or like kind of like unfair deaths, because we are also adding certain mechanics to minimize what we deem as like unfair deaths. Like for example, disconnecting mid-flight and then like you just die, like fall to your death, right? So we're adding some mechanics there to kind of like minimize those kind of things. So if there's certain behaviors like that, please let us know. That said, there's no plans. For example, if the whole servers go down and there's like certain situation like that, we also want players and everybody that wants to join this challenge to also kind of recognize that this is a risk they're willing to take, right? Like getting into hardcore comes with risks. You might die to another player, you might die to the environment, but there's also some things that might be out of our control that also are out of our like Blizzard control that we're not gonna be able to bring back. So really, just keep an extra eye on that, and like but let us know if it's something that like we can potentially add. Let us know. Yeah.
And since you mentioned that and unfair deaths, and it seems like you're doing everything you can to minimize that, does that mean that there is going to be zero appeal system within the game? If anyone dies, they're just like, you've lost it. We're not rolling back anything.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's correct.
That's correct. I mean, we're trying to be as proactive as possible to create systems like preventing creatures from being kited throughout zones. We mentioned that earlier, and the flight disconnect. Like if you ever dismounted from a taxi, the game will check whether or not you're in a situation where you would fall to your death, and if you would, then it will attempt to teleport you to the flight master that you started the flight path on, and if it can't do that, then it'll try to teleport you to the nearest graveyard. So you're correct. There's going to be no appeals process, but we're going to try to prevent those unfortunate, uncontrollable deaths proactively.
With the unfortunate deaths kind of being mitigated, I know a lot of the community has been seeing some raids happening lately where guilds or raids have been using petrification flask or bubble hearth, and there's some restrictions on the current hardcore like community, but is there going to be any restrictions for anything like that on the actual hardcore realm?
Yes.
Do you want to cover this, Anna? Or
yeah, I can go on there. You can talk about the petrific flask. Sorry, my tongue. Anyways, but there's gonna be certain class restrictions. So for example, Ankh, of course, it's out of the question. But also Bubble Heart, as known to the community, it's also gonna be disabled. Like we're not gonna allow players to kind of like use their mechanics in that kind of way. So yeah, those are gonna be out of the question. We have done a very, very like big conversation about the petrification flask, and like Tim can give you more about like the logic that we have behind it too.
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, this is a brand new environment for players. The economy is going to be fresh, and on Era Realms, you have people who've been playing since 2019. You have people who were playing in Season of Mastery who have transferred, and there's less regulation, I think, in the hardcore community of resources being traded between each other. So that might be one reason why petrification flasks are so plentiful. at the highest level right now, and we're going to be actively monitoring this and obviously listening to player feedback. But I think having very powerful tools, especially at the highest level when you've put so much time into your character, if you've saved up the resources and crafted a very powerful item that is relatively rare, I mean, Black Lotus will still be very hard to find, then it's okay for you to have those types of tools. That's sort of the flavor of Classic, to have these sort of not oddball, but like they're very unique tools and consumables that you have. So yeah, to start off, there's going to be no changes to Petrification Flask or the leave party teleport out of dungeon mechanic, but we'll monitor that situation. We're just interested to see what the use case of Petrification Flask will be in a server with a brand new untainted economy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I've just got 2 questions left for you guys because I know your time is really valuable. So thank you. There is currently within the add-on itself, one of the favorite things most people like is obviously the announcement system and seeing how people die or like their last words. Do you have any plans on implementing that, or would you encourage people to maybe keep the add-on for something like that?
We are implementing some announcements for sure. Yes. So guild chat, whenever someone dies, if they're in your guild, you're gonna be notified about it. And then whenever someone gets to level 60, it's gonna be announced on the server. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's gonna be some official notifications that are going around. Definitely, we had to have like a conversation of like, okay, do we really want to be like talking to everyone about like, hey, this person died in the whole server when they're level 2 died, Anna died again at level 3, and then it's like, okay, sorry. So definitely there's gonna be like for that is gonna be more around the guild, and then for like getting to level 60 is like a super big feature that we want everybody to know about, right, and celebrate it.
With that, because that leads perfectly, because that's a really exciting thing that you guys are adding. Is there anything else flavorful or exciting either of you two have specifically worked on, or either of you two are specifically excited about for the hardcore realms that you think people should like keep their eyes on?
I know, I'm just
yeah, I'm thinking, because for me my favorite is really the Duel to the Death and all like those like little things, and we already talked about it, so I'm just so excited about it. But yeah, I don't know, overall I'm just really excited about hardcore, and like just see how like come in the official servers and even in PTR, like just to go see that. Like, oh, the other thing too is that if you die, you become a ghost and you can still go back to the world as a ghost. So that's the second thing. Now that I think about it, that's another thing I'm excited about, is just see like, will people actually stay as ghosts and maybe create ghost community? Maybe there'll be like a guild that is full of ghosts or something and just roam around. I don't know. Maybe some RPs with like the little dots of the night elves just following each other. I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, maybe people will just be like, okay, I'm gonna go transfer to the Era servers and continue my journey there if that's what they want. But like really excited to see if there's gonna be any ghost communities. Maybe, I don't know.
I think I'm like, for me, you know, a lot of what I've worked on for hardcore is revolved around just improving the quality of life of quest content, making sure people don't get flagged unintentionally, and so just seeing people have a good time that is uninterrupted, and not being sort of negatively impacted by people wanting to ruin their experience. I think that'll be the greatest success for me to see. I'm also just excited to play. Like the community in hardcore is so supportive and fun to be around, even if, you know, failure is imminent. it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Tim. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to share all this information and for putting like, it's so exciting to see when like the people working on the game love to play it and are excited to do like get to experience what they've been working on. So thank you guys so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Sarthe. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, really nice meeting you.
Really nice to meet you. I'll see you at BlizzCon hopefully.
Heck yeah.